Well, good afternoon, and welcome to this afternoon's exciting knowledge series with Michelle Stein on building donor relationships through data, simple systems for arts fundraising. My name is Matt Morse, and I'm the Director of Private Investment Capability here at Creative Australia, and would like to welcome you to this afternoon's series. Firstly, before we start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we all gather here today, our various places across our land, and pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and any First Nations people that may be joining us today. Now, before we do get started, just a few housekeeping things that I should get through. I'd like to welcome Georgia and Yasmin, our wonderful Auslan interpreters that will be joining Michelle this afternoon. Just a reminder, just to keep your cameras off throughout today's workshop. But if you need, please turn them back on if you are asking a question towards the end of Michelle's presentation. There will be a Q&A at the end of Michelle's presentation. There will be a little bit of interaction in Michelle's presentation today, and I really do encourage you to participate as much as you can, because this opportunity is very much about getting as much as you can in this area of data and information that is going to be really, really useful for your practice or for your organization. As you see at the bottom of the screen, there is a Q&A function. You can type a question in there as we're going through the presentation. We can see that, and we'll look over those questions if we've got enough time at the completion of today's workshop, and present those questions back to Michelle, and hopefully we'll have some time to answer those. Now, many of you may remember Michelle. Michelle joined us late last year when she presented a knowledge series on LinkedIn for fundraisers, and that was extremely well received by the sector. I think it was one of a few knowledge series where we got a lot of feedback about how practical, how it explained things in a really helpful way for us as fundraisers, or for people that were really interested in furthering how to best use LinkedIn for outcomes. And so when we were having a conversation about data and setting systems up, or what you need to consider and what you need to do, the first person that came to mind was Michelle. And so I would like to hand over to Michelle, and without introduction, because I would like Michelle to introduce herself and lead today's knowledge series. So welcome, Michelle, from South Africa. It's very early in the morning, and thank you for joining us and for today's workshop.
Thanks so much, Matt, and I'm delighted to be here. Good morning, everyone from Cape Town. Thank you so much for joining. And just a bit of introduction about myself. I am a fundraising trainer and consultant. My background is primarily in the major gift space, and I worked in-house in the UK and in South Africa with arts organizations, developing their major gift strategies, and when I was in South Africa, overall an advancement department. And now I work with clients globally looking at their fundraising strategies, major gifts, a range of things. And what I love about delivering training is around making things super practical. So I really would love for you to get the most out of today's session and feel like what we're going to be covering is going to be relevant for you and your organization. So as Matt said, at any stage during our session today, please put your questions in the Q&A, and I would love to answer them so that you can come away feeling, right, I know exactly what to do to get on with it. Because data is, and I know the word can often be associated with something that's quite boring, but so much of what we do to be efficient and successful in our organizations is underpinned by great systems, and data is part of that system. Before we kick off into the meat of our session today, I wanted to get to know you all a bit better and see how we could work with data together to find out a bit about who we are, who's joining the session. So I'm doing something which I've never done before. It's a bit of an experiment. But I thought if there's any audience, it's creative professionals will get that sometimes you have to take a risk for something to pay off. So I'm going to put a link in the chat box, and the link is to something which is going to lead you to another window. It's not going to come up on this Zoom. I'm not going to share it as a screen, but it's actually going to open up in your web browser as a separate window. Well, I hope it will. And I'll then move our data gathering to that window. Once we are done with it, we'll move back to Zoom. So hopefully it will all make sense. But once I've popped this link in the chat box, click on it. It will open up into a window, as I said, I hope, and we'll go through, collect some data together, and then come back to Zoom. So here we go. Let me try it. As I said, I hope that it's going to work. And I've popped it in the chat box. So please click on it, and hopefully I will see you all in what's called Butter Scenes, where we will collect some data together. And I'll give you all just a few minutes to get into Butter Scenes, and I'm going to open Butter Scenes myself. Right, so I see quite a few people there. Hooray, it's working. Let's see how this goes. Let's get to know each other. Yes, you can use the emoticons at the bottom. Great. So let's kick off and see. Let's get to know each other and collect some data. So first, I'd love to know, where are you joining from? Just pin by clicking on the picture. Where in the country are you joining from? So we can get some data about where you collected. So just collect some data about where you are. That's great. Oh, okay, lovely, lovely. Someone's on an island somewhere, or someone's in the actual ocean, should I say? It's great. Oh, we've got someone way up in the north. Lovely. Oh, this is lovely to see so many people spread across the country. Great. Lovely to have you. Welcome. So that's good to know where everyone is joining from. Now I want to know, what does your organization do? All you have to do is type this in the little prompt box at the bottom, and let me know, what does your organization do in terms of, like, what is it delivering? Are you a museum? Are you performing arts? What are you focusing on? And let's see who's joining us so far. I'm just going to scroll through and see what we've got. Classical music, some festivals, theatre company. Lovely. Got quite a few orchestras and classical music focused, which is great. Music festivals, performing arts, circus, lovely. Oh, I love this. Empowering all people to live a creative life through electronic music. That's great. Jazz festival. Oh, we've got a photojournalist. Wow, people are doing amazing things. I'm reading through all what you're doing. This all looks amazing. And it's such a lovely mix of different work, but great. That's all fantastic. Love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, now on to the next thing that I want to collect from you. I want to understand, what size is your organization? So this is, how many employees do you have? How many people are in your organization? Let me know just by clicking on this. And I don't know, I hope everyone can see this, or maybe not. You can see it. Okay, so I'm not seeing your answers. As I said, let's see if we can. Oh, there we go. It's coming up. I hope you can see it as well. Oh, we've got also most in the 6 to 30 range, but we've also got some people, a few soul, For the founders, employees, we've also got people who are in 100 plus organizations. Wow, great. Um, Lovely. That's a really nice mix. Okay, thank you. That's wonderful. Great data point. Yes. So that's good to know that most are in that 6 to 30. Okay, let's go on to the next data point is what I want to find out from you. What fundraising income streams do you currently get funding from? And you can click all here that apply. Um, so let me know. Um, Okay, it seems like a nice mix across so far, all the income streams. That's great. That's going to be helpful for me when we talk about what do we do with the data? Like how do we do, what is once we have our data, what is the next step? So that's helpful to me. But obviously government funding is the winner here. And then we've got some individual givers, which is perfect for, as I said, what we're going to be talking about today, but also relevant for those high level donations from trusts and foundations, major donors and corporates. That's great. Um, Now I want to find out, just let me know, how do you feel about collecting and using data? Pop a word that you feel or phrase into the box, let me know. And so I can get a sense of what are you coming with to our session today? How are you feeling about collecting and using data? Yeah, we've got a nice mix as well. I love whoever wrote that good except working without a CRM system. I hear you, I feel you. I'm sure a lot of people are in the same boat. Um, uh, it's nice to see a few excited as well as a big one, but also overwhelming. Yes, like where do you start, especially if you um, don't have a CRM system? When you time poor, as some people said, when it's hard, when it's intrusive, some people feel that when it's a big, big, big job. Yeah, love those reflections. So good to know what you're coming with to our session today. Um, that's great. Thank you for all those reflections. And then I want to find out from you, do you have a CRM? Let me know. Yes or no. Um, yes or no. Today's session, I'm going to be sharing with you a sheet that you can use if you don't have a CRM. I wanted to make this super, I didn't want to use examples of CRMs if you don't have one. But if you do have one, the actual sheet that I'll share with you obviously won't be as relevant. It will be all the other stuff. So recognizing that people are coming with different at different stages. So, oh, an even split there, or not. More no's than yeses, but that's a good. We've got a no's and we've got some yeses. So the yeses, you'll find the section about the actual sheet itself not so useful, but everything else will be completely relevant. Great. And then I want to find out from you, what is one thing you want to get out of today's workshop? Let me know. Money, great, great. Knowledge. I mean, you may as well just be upfront. Money, yes, money, practical ideas, more understanding. I'm just going to read through them. Great. Some strategies on how to start. Okay, streamlining data, that's useful. Okay, helpful. And those people who've said about feeling more confident about the systems that you have about the CRM, like I said, the actual sheet that I'll be sharing for those who don't have a CRM and can use it won't be so relevant, but then we'll talk about ways around what should you be looking at when you're looking at your data. So that will be very, very specific to you and for everyone, but will be particularly relevant if you're looking at how can we use that data that we have, how to great, how to improve, how to use the data to improve fundraising strategies. Great. Thank you. I really appreciated that. That's so helpful for me. And I hope that, like I said, the different elements of today's session will address that. And then the last question that I want to get out of today's data data collection from all of you is I want to know, how are you feeling right now? Just click with the pen on which dog, on the dog-o-meter, what represents you today, right now. Okay, we've got a mix. That's great. Lovely. Oh, a nice mix. Okay. Okay, I just wanted to know how everyone was feeling and what mental space you were in when you were coming into our session today. So thank you all for sharing. I loved collecting data with you. I wanted to show you that data's nice and fun. That's our last question. So what we're going to do is I want to ask you to come back into Zoom, and I'm going to share my screen, and let's kick off and let's start talking all things data together. So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you being such good sports, at trying something new and working with me to uncover that data. Let me go back myself to Zoom. Great. So like I said, thank you so much for that. And I wanted to also, although it's really nice for me to know what kinds of people are coming, what you're joining, how you feeling about things, what mental space you're in at this particular moment, what you want to get out of it. I wanted to also show that sometimes data can be fun. When I was thinking about how can I collect data from the group, thinking about, are there fun ways that we can do it? How can I make it not feel like, oh, it's a drag? Zoom polls give me so much anxiety. So I was thinking, how can I work around it? Also thinking that as much as all my data, it's so useful to me and it informs although I've got my training obviously planned out, it does help inform then what I focus on, how I angle it based on the data that you've told me from the group. So thinking about our organizations stay the same, but how data can help us just almost shine a spotlight on different aspects depending on what we find out from the data. So with that, I wanted to jump in and start addressing some of those people who said a feeling of just overwhelming, a bit unsure what the next step is. If you are on the same, agree with me that data is important. It can help shape our organizations. It can lead to better fundraising activities. Then where do you start if you don't have anything in place? And for those who do have a CRM, just hang with me, and we will get to all the analytics and connecting with donors based on data. So I'm just going to share my screen. And I wanted to share with you a method today to use data that is called the track method. And the track method is a way of thinking about data so that it doesn't feel overwhelming and it's quite systematic. And we're going to be talking through tracking is about targeting what really matters, recording what you have without any hassle, so it doesn't feel like a huge burden on you, particularly for those who are time poor, sole employees, or you in a large organization, but you're juggling multiple hats. We want to use it to analyze use that data and then analyze it for the relationship goal. You want that data. There's no point it sitting on a spreadsheet, or even if you have a sophisticated CRM, if you don't use that data, it's not really helpful. And then you want to connect with confidence to your current supporters, donors, prospective donors. And then we absolutely want a way to keep it sustainable. So we're going to be looking at that at the end. And how can we have that system? And I'll have some suggestions for how you can keep that data updated, but without it being just this massive task that is just cannot be tackled because it feels too overwhelming. So let's jump into the track method and first go with, like I said, target, which is thinking about what really matters when it comes to data. And the first step of the track system is about being quite selective with what you find out with your data. It's not about trying to capture absolutely everything. It's about that being that quite selective. And it was actually interesting that I found this piece of research that was conducted by the Wallace Foundation, which is based in the US, and they did a study of 25 arts organizations and how they use data. And they found that it was Goldilocks in terms of they either collected too little, so they only had names and a contact detail, and there was nothing else. They collected too much, and it was too much information that they felt then that paralysis that they couldn't do anything with it, or they were collecting inconsistently, which meant that they did not. It really was very much dependent on who was leading the process, who was pushing it, the individuals. There was no system in place. And actually, they found that, surprise, surprise, that the key is really finding a sweet spot in between having just the basics, but then not having too much that you can't do something with it. And that's why I want to introduce, when it comes to tracking, I want to recommend what I call the mighty minimum. And the mighty minimum are the pieces of essential data that you need to drive the results that you want. It is 6 key data points, and these are the ones that have been identified as the key ones that organizations, and particularly art organizations, can use that are most actionable for you to track. I feel that, so to go through it, your name and any kind of contact details, a connection point around how they found you, interest areas, so that's where they specifically about what programs and areas of work that you're doing that they care about, some kind of giving history, so tracking how many donations, the size of the donations, or if they are someone who could be a high value prospect, by which I mean that they can give a much larger gift if they have capacity indicators, so anything that can indicate that they can give a larger gift, their communication preferences, and then key conversations or interactions that one can have. I think that this feels like a manageable list. There are obviously, you can branch out and do more, but it's not. What we're trying to do is we're trying to keep it manageable is the key here. And we don't want to capture absolutely everything. We're just trying to capture the most important elements that you can use to drive fundraising decisions and a fundraising strategy, and even programmatic elements as well. So this is the mighty minimum, and that you're going to be looking at. And I'm going to share the tracking system, and even if you have a CRM, these are the elements that you want to be looking at and focusing on. And that mighty minimum timeline is not something that you have it happens all at once. Think of it that you're collecting this data, the mighty minimum, over a gradual period of time. It's going to build your supporter profile, but it's going to happen over a period. It doesn't need to happen all at the same time. So it doesn't have to feel overwhelming for you. Or I know someone used the word intrusive for someone who is supporting your organization. But it's doing both. So thinking about those elements of the mighty minimum and where we could, where we could collect those pieces of data at various points of a supporter or donor's journey with us. So thinking about when someone has first contact with our organization, can we get their basic contact information? Can we get a connection point about how they found us? And ask them one follow-up question like, what are they interested in? What caught their eye? What is it that they first joining us for for what reason? Then we want, during the actual engagement, so once they've signed up with us, we want to understand what their program preferences are. We want to understand what their communication preferences are. And if we are meeting with some of those supporters one-to-one, or we come into contact with them, any of those key insights or interactions. And then after transactions or interactions with them, we would then want to understand what their giving history is. So their donation amounts and frequency, what events they're attending and any patterns in that, and any response to specific outreach. So if we want to ask, say, for a meeting with someone, what are they telling, what are they saying to that interaction? What's happening in that interaction? And so thinking about that, we have a timeline of engagement with the supporter, different points at which a supporter is engaging with us. And we don't have to get that mighty minimum all at the same time, but it's going to happen at various points. So for those organizations that don't have a CRM currently, I wanted to share with you just this tracking spreadsheet that you can use. And I will share with you a link afterwards. It's a template link. So all you have to do is just copy it and then you can use it as your template. If you're, as I said, if you already have something that's working for you, you absolutely don't have to do this. But if you don't have something in place, I did want to share with you a tracking system, which I'm going to show you now. And so hopefully you have the Excel, Google Sheet in front of you. And you can use this for your as your CRM if you don't have one. Like I said, if you have something that's working for you, please don't feel the need to replace it, but I'll share with you the link to have it. And it just has that mighty minimum in place. So we've got the key contact details. And if they have an organization behind them, we can add that. So contact details, communication preference. So this is a drop down and you can choose what you want, and I'll talk to that when we talk about how to filter individuals. Here, the connection point also is a drop down that I've added, and there are a few different things I've got here: an event, your website, social media, or referral, and you can choose whatever is relevant to you, and you can add things and customize it. We've got a first engagement date, so that is when someone initially start supporting you or has interest, and interest areas as well, their giving history, keynotes, capacity indicators, which, as I said, is not going to be relevant for every single individual. It's really only relevant if you're looking to build higher level relationships. That's one-on-one relationships with someone who might be a trustee of a large foundation, a high net worth individual, maybe someone who has a senior position in a corporate, and you want that kind of information. Then I've also included here, and I should say for the first engagement date and the last interaction, you just click on it and it opens up a calendar, so you can click on any date that you want. It's got last interaction notes if it's a one-to-one relationship, next steps, a next steps due date, which is also a calendar, and then a priority if it's high, low, or medium. And I'll talk through how we'll use some of those and filter some of that information. If you have a CRM, when we talk about filtering information, we'll do that that would be the reports that you would run off your CRM that would happen automatically. So I'll share this with you, and it's something that I've used with other arts organizations as just a simple way to start thinking about how do we collect data if you have nothing. And as I said, I'll use it as the demo to talk about how we analyze that data and connect with our supporters. So let me go back to to talking about our tracking, what we want to track. I just also wanted to reflect on the interest areas and why I think that it's often overlooked and people feel that it might be intrusive, but it's such a helpful thing to think about when you are looking at how you could have very targeted asks of donors if you know what they're interested in. It can help you be quite segmented in what content you share. And again, we'll talk about this further on. And also, if you are an organization which has or relies on volunteers or their volunteer opportunities, it's also really nice to be able to know what areas someone is interested in the in your organization. And yes, really nice. And it can transform what could be quite generic communications into something that's very personalized. When it comes to tracking and what to target in terms of data, I just want to, um, uh, you know, confirm. I just wanted to reiterate, I suppose, that you really want to focus on the quality of your data over the quantity. So if you found that even the mighty minimum it might be too much initially to start you off with. There might be, for those who have more sophisticated CRMs, there might be gaps in your data. Don't stress over it. It's about having that quality data. So thinking to yourself, what do we need? What's most important for us to have that quality data rather than trying to get everything? And why it's important to think that way is that it will obviously save time over that data entry and maintenance. It will reduce that feeling of overwhelm. And you don't actually need so many data points to be able to really segment and give someone a very, very personalized experience. I was at a theatre show recently here in Cape Town, and during the interval, they came up they said they were just trying to understand the audience better, and they had some iPads, and they were asking people if they would give information, share some information. And they were asking things like, where you coming from in the city? How did you get there? And I can understand that from some perspective, particularly in the case of Cape Town, where we don't have a public transport system, so it's good to understand how people can get to a space. But I also wonder to myself, do they have all the data on me to give me a really personalized, amazing experience when it comes to communications and tailoring it? And when asking me for money, what is more important? And I think that knowing that what data points are the most useful for you will be helpful in focusing your time and your energy. And as I said, the mighty minimum for me are the key elements to really think about. And let me go back to that slide just so that you have it up to see again. Yes, if you want to know how your supporters, attendees get to your show, that's great. But do you have everything else? That for me, that's maybe a nice to have rather than an essential piece that's actually going to drive your fundraising, that's actually going to drive your programming, rather than if you took a non-existent bus or a car to get to the theatre. So now I want to hand it over to you, and I want to ask you to have a think about what are your top 3 data points that would make the biggest difference for your organization. I'm going to keep quiet to give you just time to reflect on it for a couple of minutes. But have a think, what would be the 3 top data points that would make the biggest difference? And as I said, I'm going to keep quiet for now. If something has come up while reflecting on what the data points are that are going to be most useful for you, and you have questions, just want to remind you, please pop any questions in the Q&A box and would love to answer them at the end if something has come up for you around identifying what are the key things, key elements of data that are going to be most important for you and for you to concentrate on so that you get the most out of your data if it feels overwhelming and you don't need, as I said, everything, but let's focus on the mighty minimum. There we go. Okay, so now that we know what we're going to target, we know what's important to us. How then do we get that data? How do we record it? And how do we record it in a way that isn't going to create too much additional work? So let's look at the different stages of a relationship that someone might have with your organization. And I recognize that there are a few, because we are quite a diverse group in terms of what we do. Not all of it will be relevant for every single kind of organization, but just I'm thinking about as in when someone has first contact with you, then during the engagement with you, and then after a transaction. So at first contact, if you have an event, could there be sign-up sheets? So old school, a clipboard method with pen and paper for someone to sign up about something and provide contact information, program interest areas. Do you have a digital welcome form that you could also use instead if you are, want to go more the tech route? Something that could be accessed via a QR code that someone could click on and fill in data. Or it could be business card collection. So I know that, I don't know how many people still use business cards, but particularly if you're working higher value relationships where it's one-on-one, that kind of first contact and collecting that data could be useful. When I worked with an executive director who was very forward-facing in their role and very much was about very focused on fundraising, when she would go to events, networking events, she would come back the next day, she would give me whatever business card she had collected, and it was my task to upload that information and connect with those individuals, ask for a meeting, and then build the relationship there. So that was when it was more high value one-on-one relationship building, and she just collected the business cards and then I inputted that data. Could there be something on your website which has your contact information, about connecting with you, or a newsletter that you have where you also have to put your interest check boxes? Is it in an automated welcome email? So often to make sure that if someone connects with you and wants to sign up to receive updates and they get a welcome email from the organization, to make sure that it doesn't land up in their spam folder, they'll ask in the welcome email to answer a specific question. And by answering that question, then future emails won't land up in spam. And that question could look like, how did you connect with us? What brought you here? What do you know about our work? So a quick question that can then start an engagement, and as I said, can be just automated through a welcome email, so that your emails won't land up in someone's spam, and also you will get additional data about someone you could input into a CRM or my tracking spreadsheet. Or can you simply add an extra field on a ticketing or donation platform, which asks one of the mighty minimum questions so that you can get a greater sense of your donor? As I said, know that not all of these will be relevant to every single organization here, but just a way of thinking about it. And then during the engagement itself, so once someone has engaged in some way with your organization, thinking about quick conversation capture after, if you have an interaction with someone, a supporter, a donor, is there a way to capture that information quickly? Again, when I'm thinking with my major gift hat on and I'm having one-on-one conversations with donors, then I'll just have my notes app open on my phone, quickly jot down some notes on someone. If any of you do some kind of supporter events, or whether you have an opening night or any kind of event where you're going to, you know who the invitees are, um, I would have an event debrief. So this would look like a sheet with the images of those individuals, a short bio of those individuals, and then at the end of the night, I would bring all the internal stakeholders together and we would have the sheet open. I would press record on my phone and we would go through each person and everyone would say whether they had spoken to them, what they had spoken about, what information they found out about them, and we'll move on to the next person and we'll go through it very, very quickly. And it's much quicker than asking people to send notes based on who they've seen, because people hate typing stuff up. So if you are hosting that kind of event, think about how you could use your event debrief to quickly capture data about the people you've been speaking to. Also, if you're having some kind of event check-in, so for those people who are running festivals, or even if you're coming to attending an event, can there be some kind of tablet with interest selections when you check in, so that you're building that data? There's also, you can do post-program feedback forms, old school on paper or digital, asking people information around what they enjoyed, what programmatic areas of interest to them, what do they like about things, and also post-event emails. So sending an email afterwards to ask people what did they think, what did they enjoy about it, what do they want to see from you in future. So those are all things, as someone's engaging with you, the ways that you could capture that information. And as I said, some more relevant than others, depending on your organization. And then after someone's had an interaction or a transaction with an organization, are there ways that we can collect some data? So if someone has bought a ticket for an event of yours or given you a donation, is there something in the thank you process? Again, if it's a small donation, is there an automated thank you, which can then prompt a question that can get you more data? Can you send round a digital survey to your database to ask them one or two questions that could help inform and speak to the mighty minimum? Do you send round an annual update your preferences communications email that you could just check that people are happy with how they're being communicated with? And also, if you are holding any one-to-one meetings, again, thinking about high net worth individuals, corporates, anyone in government, any trusts and foundations, if you're meeting with someone face to face, can you capture the notes and the data using a voice recorder on your phone, so that you don't have to worry about taking notes? Or if you're meeting them online, to use an AI assistant, and most Zoom packages have the AI assistant built in, or you can use something free like Fathom, so that you are keeping all that data, all that information about those one-to-one relationships, where the mighty minimum is good, but the more information that you have about those one-to-one relationships, those higher gifts that you want to get in, the better the easier it is to personalize the communications, the offers that you'll give to them, because you're building a one-to-one relationship. And then when it comes to setting up your system, and again, for those who have the CRM, this is not so relevant, but for the others who don't have a CRM, I'll share with you the tracking spreadsheet. Choose what is going to be the most useful to you. I've laid it all out, but if it feels too much, take stuff out, and then start using it. As I said, you don't need any technical expertise to start using that Google Sheet. So now I want to find out from you, when we're talking about this recording data, I want to find out from you, what's the one place you could start collecting data today and thinking about our supporter journey, where at first contact, during engagement, and then after a transaction or an interaction. Where's one place that you could start collecting? I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to have a think about. And if it brings up any questions, let me know in the Q&A. Great. So I hope that gave you an opportunity to think through, what are you already collecting that is useful? What is missing? And is there something in a supporter journey that you could there's some way that you could use the supporter journey to engage with someone to collect more information about them. And thank you. Matt has just flagged for me, wanted to say, what is a CRM? And apologies, I've broken my own rule about jargon and I've just thrown around the word CRM. And a CRM is stands for client relationship management. So or customer relationship management. And as I said, it's a sophisticated database that allows you to track data, and also very usefully, it's a system which allows you to extract that data, running various reports, so that something that you would have to do manually on, say, a Google Sheet, you can do on a CRM, and you can keep huge volumes of data quite easily. So we've identified what's going to be most important to us with our data through our Mighty Minimum. We've thought about how we're going to record it. Is there something missing, something we can add? Or if we haven't started collecting data, is there a way that we can start thinking about where we could start picking up some of this data? Now, once we have that data, how can we analyze that? Because as I said, it's no point in having that data on your system, on your CRM, on your sheet. How can we pull that so that we can analyze it to see patterns in our data, and that it can inform how we approach our supporters? So thinking about who is always showing up, what interest areas connect certain supporters, which supporters might be ready for a certain ask or a bigger ask, who hasn't been contacted recently, or any kind of hidden connections between supporters. And before we implement a system, it can often be that you know this information through anecdotal evidence, or it's you relying on hunches or fragments of information. But the data there provides you with that information, the evidence to be able to act on those hunches, to see those patterns. And it can be so useful, particularly if you have a particular fundraising strategy that you have, or an approach that you want to take, and you need buy-in from other people. Having that data there to back up why you're taking this approach can be so useful. So when we are looking at that data, whether that data is on this track spreadsheet or whether that data is in a CRM which you have, these are the 5 critical patterns that you want to be identifying. You want to be looking at your giving frequency. So who is giving you consistently versus occasionally? Key thing there with fundraising. You want to look at your giving trajectory. So who is increasing their gift over time? So important. Or who could be decreasing their gift over time? Um, what is the engagement to giving ratio? So who is attending frequently? So who do you see that's always coming to your events but hasn't donated? You want to be keeping an eye out for it. You want to also be looking at your lapsed donors. Who has been a previous supporter of yours who hasn't given in the past 12 months? And you also want to have see who is a first-time donor that potentially you can cultivate for further donations or a bigger gift. And that these key patterns that you are going to be analyzing as part of the data that you bring in the Mighty Minimum are going to be key to then informing your fundraising strategy. And these are the, as I said, these are the things that you're going to be looking for. So how do you find these patterns in your data? This is what you're going to be doing. And on the tracking sheet, I've put this as a list. So you'll get the recording, but also if you want to copy that tracking sheet, this will be there so that you can see out of these 5 patterns, how am I actually going to access that data? So when it comes to giving frequency, I've given then the practical analysis method for each of these. If you have a CRM, this might be easy as, it's so super easy. You just have to press the button and it pulls it out. Or maybe it's not. Let me know, ask me questions or let me know in the Q&A how your current CRM and how it's working for you. But if you want to, with giving frequency, so I want to see how often someone is giving a gift. I want to be sorting by the name, counting how many donations they've made in the past 24 months, and I want to see people who've given 3 or more times in that 24-month period. If I'm going to be looking at my giving trajectory, that's an increase in gifts. I want to compare the first gift to the most recent gift and looking for an increase over time. An engagement to giving ratio, I'm going to sort by attendance. I'm going to see who has attended, look for people who've come to 3 or more events but have never donated. Lapsed donors, I'm going to be looking at the last donation date and that there've been no gifts since then. And first-time gifts, looking at who's given a one and only gift and could be ready to engage. This doesn't make the best training material. It's not super exciting to talk through, but I hope that just saying that there is a system, a process for how to do it. So I just didn't want to leave you with, look at the frequency. I just wanted to give you a really practical way to do it. If you have a CRM, you probably know how to do this anyway, but to say that these are the 5 patterns that I'll be looking for, and the checklist is on your tracking sheet. So you have it there that you can look at these things super easily and you know how to do it. If then your fundraising is slightly more advanced or your data collection is slightly more advanced, there's some patterns that I would be looking at for what I'm calling advanced. So this is not essential, but these are nice to have in addition to it. Is I would be looking at donors who've increased the gift size of over a certain amount of donations, which is similar to the gift trajectory. I also want to look at supporters who have made a single gift of a certain amount, whatever that amount is going to be relevant for your organization, but haven't been cultivated. So if I'm thinking now with how do I do relationship fundraising, those bigger gifts, that's a key metric that I'm going to be looking at. Who's given that single gift over a certain amount, whatever that is for your organization. If it's $100, $1,000, whatever it is, and we've never engaged with them properly. I also want to look at anyone who's given a certain amount, but over 3 years consecutively. And is there anyone there that I can pick up to engage with, or anyone who's given a cumulative gift of a certain amount over 12 months. So they could be giving you smaller gifts, but then when you see the cumulative picture, you'll see that it's actually a much larger amount of money. And if I'm looking at how do I identify people who I could ask for a bigger gift, whether that's thinking as a major donor gift, or even just an uplift in their existing the existing gift they have, these are some of the things that I'll be looking at. As I said, supporters who've made a single gift over a certain amount but haven't been cultivated, the giving a gift consecutively over a certain period of years, and then anyone who's given adding up a cumulative gift over a certain amount. And those are such helpful patterns to then identify so that I know, okay, it can inform my fundraising strategy going forward. It can inform my approach. It knows who do I need to reach out to? How do I segment my proposals? And we'll talk a bit about that now when we talk about the connect part of tracking. But in terms of analyzing, what are the things you want to be analyzing? These are the 5 things that you want to be patterns you want to be looking at to help you reveal those insights. So I want to now hand it over to you for another just reflection, 2 minutes to have a think about what are the most important patterns that you want to identify in your data, and I will keep quiet. I hope that gave you just a spark of inspiration around thinking, what is it that do we analyze our data currently? What is it that we're analyzing? Are there patterns that we're missing? Are there things that we could add? Are we doing the basics? Could we add something? Could we graduate from the basics to the more advanced? So I hope that offered that. And I just wanted to jump back to show you on the tracking sheet for those who would like to use it. I've got a tab at the bottom called pattern analysis. So there it outlines these things. It gives you a checklist. So you can say, look at the giving frequency, and then it tells you how to do each thing, sort by name, count donations, all of that. So everything that's on that slide, I've just translated into like an action to-do list that you can use, and I've divided it up between the basic and the more advanced, so that you can get started using this sheet to analyze those patterns. So it is on the pattern analysis tab if you're using the sheet. If you have a CRM, it could be it's probably these are reports that you could either you maybe have them already, or that you could just set up and then run regularly. And we'll talk about that when we get into maintenance, how often to run things. So we've looked at track. What are we targeting? What data? We've looked at how do we record that data, some options. We've looked at now how do we analyze that data once we have it. The next part of our track method is how do we connect? So we've got our data, we've got the analysis, It's confirmed things that maybe you know, as I said, anecdotally, that were hunches, but it's actually provided you with that evidence. And now what we want to do is we want to use that data to actually build stronger relationships with our donors. That's the key here. We want to use it to build that. So the most meaningful way to connect with donors is to personalize their communications based on their interests. So having a think about what is it that they came to with, and then demonstrating them through your communications that you are showing them things that are most important to them. I should say, actually, I don't know. Should I go here first? No, actually, sorry, I'm going to jump back. I just want to say that when it comes to personalizing that engagement with them, it also allows you to match whatever opportunities you have to specific supporters. So if you have a particular appeal that is going out, if you have a particular event that's happening, when you know what someone's interests are, you can connect with them in a more meaningful way. And the research that was done by this was the audience agency, looked at that when you are engaging with someone and personalizing it based on their interests, it significantly increased their response rates. And also that interest is that it's a time outreach based on engagement, by which I mean that if someone's come to an event and then you send them an email or communications after they've come to your event, then just showing that you are timing it right, that you are aware of how they're engaging with your organization. I've had a situation where I was a monthly giver to a particular organization. They had a big appeal, and they sent me the appeal the day after, like my monthly direct debit had come off my bank account, and I just felt that it just showed that there was no real thinking behind the timing of that outreach, because they had just asked me. The money had just come out of my account, and there was also no indication, there was no personalization in the letter to say, we know you're a monthly supporter, but we just had to let you know, be aware that we're running this big appeal, which would have been fine, but getting asked for more money the day after money has come out of your bank account and having no indication that you're an existing supporter just shows that you don't value someone, and could have easily been rectified if they had just segmented their donors. So it allows meaningful outreach when you personalize an interest, when there's the time element as well, when you can match those opportunities. I said here, build a genuine relationships and create surprise and delight. These are also really relevant if you are looking at higher level relationships and you want to connect with donors and create amazing opportunities for them with major donors, trusts and foundations, corporates. Knowing as much information as possible can help you do that. So again, another really practical slide that I want to talk through is, if your analysis shows that you have consistent small donors, then my strategy will be, I want to invite them to a monthly giving program or membership program. If I have engagement, so lots of people coming to events, but there's no giving, I want to send out a first-time program, a donor appeal with a program connection. So what have they come to? Connected to the appeal. If I have lapsed donors, I want to send a "We Miss You" plus a specific program they previously supported. So reflect that in the data. If I want to increase, if I've seen that there's some donors who've increased their donation, that trajectory pattern, I want to send them a personal invitation to a special event or behind the scenes. Or if someone is a first-time donor, I want to send them, maybe I have like a few emails I can send them over a 90-day period, which welcomes them and then multiple touch points. So just a few different ways that if your analysis shows you something, these are the ways that then you can connect it to the actual engagement with a supporter. And I've put together this segment to strategy slide, which I won't. I'll just tell you the theory behind it is that, again, if your analysis shows these patterns, then this is the strategic approach you can take, which is the fundraising goal, and then what the communication focus should be. So I want to give that all to you in a table that you can just check if what you can have this out so that you can see what is it my analysis shows, then what is the approach that I want to take, what is my fundraising goal, and what will be my communications focus. So if I see that I'm getting lots of small but consistent donors, then maybe I want to invite people to a monthly giving program, or maybe I need to set up a monthly giving program. It depends what you have available. The goal here is you want to convert people to recurring gifts, so it's not ad hoc for you. And there, your communication focus would be your consistent support makes a difference. Join our monthly giving circle to increase your impact. So all about finding out segmenting it, and then the communication focus, the connection reflects the analysis that you found, the pattern that you found. And that is all. I've put that all in one table for you, so you can see how we connect the communication focus based on the analysis and the approach. I've also wanted to share that once you have that information, once you've got the analysis and the patterns, and then you're seeing what the patterns are, it's about segmenting those patterns and adjusting your communications to those, to what the segment tells you. So if you're seeing that you have first-time attendees, first-time supporters, following up on your recent visit, I noticed your area in this, and this. So you can do that in your email. Or if you're a lap supporter, we miss seeing you at recent events. I thought of you when we scheduled our blah, blah, blah. Or if someone is a regular donor and you want to cultivate them more, your support has made such a difference to our blah, blah, blah. I wanted to share this behind the scenes insight. And I know that there are going to be knowledge series webinars on using AI. So we could get into AI a lot here, and I'm sure it will be covered in those webinars. But this is where, for me, AI is so useful, because if you are noticing patterns with your data and you want to then change the communication focus, instead of it being before you would, need a lot of time to craft that email series. If I've noticed patterns, I can just have one email, and then I can ask AI to change the focus to these different audiences. So if I have one appeal and I want to send it to lapsed donors or first-time donors or donors who I want to increase the gift size, then I can just ask AI, this is these are the audience segments. This is my fundraising goal with each of these. Adjust this letter and to the fundraising goal, but have it in your tone of voice, your style. So it's not something, not building it from scratch. It's there. And I've said here that sorry, I don't want to do death by PowerPoint, which I feel that I've done, but I wanted to put it all here for you so you have it. Is that once you've analyzed that data, you've identified your segments, those patterns, you want to match your segments to the appropriate appeals, craft a personalized message, which you can do by yourself or use AI. Then you want to track that communication to see how it is, and then continue to refine and iterate that process. So it's not like it's a one and done and it will be amazing, but it continues to evolve. I wanted to share again, I'm really sorry that this is not going to win awards for any PowerPoint design, but I wanted to share this example from the Association of California Symphony Orchestras, where they had no fundraising system. They only had like part-time staff, and they had a declining donor donor base, and they had one computer. And they said, they focused on collecting data, and they focused on a 1 year end appeal campaign. They segmented their donors into those three groups. So past donors, current donors, and then anyone who's engaged non-donors. And those patterns you can easily identify with the mighty minimum. And then they started segmenting their appeals. The first year they only had like $2,875 raised. But 5 years later, based on that segmentation of those different groups, they raised over $10,000. And they now say that it's a permanent part of their operational DNA, that everything is segmented when it comes to their appeals, and they can easily filter it from their data. So I wanted to ask you, what supporter insight could help you create more meaningful connections? I am going to give you 30 seconds to have a think about, thinking about, how do we engage with our donors? Great. So thinking about, once you've identified the patterns, what would be your strategy? How we can connect more meaningfully with our connections? And then once we have we're thinking about that, we are constantly analyzing, we're looking for patterns, we're segmenting, we're communicating, and then we're iterating based on what comes out of it. We want to keep the system going. We want to keep it sustainable. And I wanted to propose a method which, in keeping with our industry, and it's not a first Thursday, it's a first Friday method, and it's using the first Friday of the month to just spend 30 minutes thinking about or cleaning up, maintaining that data. And I've given a schedule for what to look at in this maintenance routine. There are things that you can do on a weekly basis. It's 2 minutes. Your monthly first Friday is where you're going to update the status of recent contacts, identify 3 to 5 people for outreach, plan next month's engagement, and then you can look at things on a quarterly basis more broadly. Again, this is all on the tracking sheet. I've got another tab for you. I'll just share that with you. At the bottom, it says here, First Friday Maintenance Checklist. And I've got a checklist for you to look at. What are your weekly tasks? What are your monthly tasks? What are the quarterly tasks that you're going to look at? And those quarterly tasks is that pattern identification. And then an annual review, which is slightly more in depth, but still only an hour. I hope that for those small organizations, this will feel super manageable, because it's looking at the key things that are going to keep your data clean and up to date, and a few things that I hope that it will prove helpful. So I've just here, whatever your last interaction date is, depending on the date, it will color code it. So you can see it's either 30, 60, or 90 days. And so you'll see when the last interaction is, and visually you'll be able to see easily, okay, you can filter based on the colors. Who have we not had any contact with? Who do we need to talk to? And it's the same here with the next steps due date. You can filter it. You can also obviously prioritize existing supporters with the medium, high, and low, so you can filter it that way. But the color coding will allow you to filter it easily and see, oh no, who is lapsed, who haven't we come into contact with, who is in the green and we've had some communication. But your First Friday Maintenance Checklist is all here on this tab. And I've also included, I feel like I'm on the Home Shopping Network, but I've included on the last tab just a getting started guide. So if you don't want to trawl through all the slides again, I've put that all there for you, just how to get started if you want to use this sheet. But jumping back to the Canva, if I'm jumping back to the our presentation to say that the monthly routine looks at how to divide up the tasks over these your weekly, your monthly. Monthly is 30 minutes, quarterly is 15, and then an annual is just 1 hour, so that you can maintain your data or input your data. If you want to consider upgrading and my spreadsheet is not doing it for you anymore, or CRM has been on your mind, some things to think about is, do you have, and not, you don't have to have all of this. It will obviously, these are things that are really helpful to think about who, if you have more than 200 active supporters. So it's not like your cousin who signed up for you as a favor like 5 years ago. It's 200 active supporters. If you're having multiple team members who need access, if there are complex reporting requirements that you feel like the patterns that you need to identify are not coming through strong enough in the spreadsheet and you need more automated communications, then it's worthwhile considering upgrading to a CRM. But until then, a spreadsheet does work just fine. Just yes, does work that way. Does work very well. Now, as I said, I'll share with you. So the resources that you'll receive, it's that track system, the first Friday maintenance checklist, the getting started guide, and the pattern analysis, which I should have added here as well. So that's our track method in a nutshell. We're going to target what really matters, our 6 to 10 data points. We're going to record without the hassle, and we're going to think about our supporter journey, first contact, during engagement, and after the interaction, and think about how we collect that, and are there ways that we could add something to that journey that can record that information. We want to analyze for patterns and the relationship goal that's there. Then we want to connect with confidence. We want to use the patterns that we've seen to segment and personalize outreach to our supporters. And then we want to keep it sustainable with our first Friday method. So we want to maintain that data. And should I say that even for those who work in very large organizations will say that, if you're working in a small organization, you think, oh, if we had more personnel, then we could track, then the data would be easy to keep up to date. But it's really not the case. It's more about having a system in place. It's less about the number of people in an organization and more that you have a system that supports maintaining, updating, and cleaning your data. And that's why when I work with clients who want to upgrade to a CRM, I say to them, and CRMs require often a lot of money, and it's a lot of prep, and it's a whole process, and it can take many months or even years, that rather than focus on the actual CRM itself, make sure that the system you have in place as an organization to do the track method is in place first before you think about a CRM, which often people think as the silver bullet that will solve all their data issues. It's more about making sure the system's in place first, and that's working before we jump into a CRM. So I would love to answer some questions, and would as a starting off point, maybe for people to think about, is I'd love to find out, or maybe it will prompt a question. What is one action you can take away from today and use in your work? But I think that, Matt, I should stop talking and hand over to you if there are any questions.
Thanks, Michelle. I think a lot of us will be thinking, thank you so much for making that template, because it's not only a template, it's a guide in, well, it's set up really to do so many things already, but it has those extra tabs there that prompt us as to what are the questions, or that can really help us curate what our thinking is when it comes to our fundraising with that particular pieces of data. For me, I personally love the segments to strategy segment. So yes, so there is a few questions. So I'm going to start with, how do you get data on program preferences, communications preferences retrospectively? Is it as simple as having a conversation casually?
You can take a number of different methods. So if you are meeting those people face to face, say at an opening or any kind of event, then absolutely you can just ask someone, just remind me, how do you like to be communicated with? People tick check boxes when they're doing things on autopilot, so it might not necessarily be what they actually want. So, I've had major donor prospects where I can't where they don't want to be contacted, but then I see them at an event, they're like, of course you can contact me. So just you can ask them in conversation or use one of the methods like for program preferences, either like an annual, I don't like the word survey, but like an
Hmm.
annual getting to know you. So ask them that after they've joined, or use it as a jumping off point if they've attended an event or bought a ticket for something, donated something. Ask as a follow up in that, please remind us what are your preference area, your programmatic interests and your communication interests. So think about that, the stages of first contact, you said is not relevant, but during the relationship and after the transaction, those two methods, how you could engage people, find ways either to talk to them if you're meeting them in person, or it could be done over email or when they're signing up for something or buying a ticket, that there's just an extra field box that you can ask those questions.
I think I already know the answer to this question, but if I don't have data that I can fall back on, what would be a good start?
If you don't have it, then go with if this is, it depends what your goal is. So if it's that you want to send out an appeal, then go with, either like a lot of it's about hunches that we have about feeling about something. So send it out based on the hunch, or you could send it out as a blanket and then ask for the feedback as that appeal and use the example from the orchestra where they knew the first appeal not going to do so well, but then based on what the data they receive from that, they iterate and iterate, and they get a good result. So if you don't have anything to base it on, either go with your hunch, do something blanket, but recognize that that's the starting point for iterating into something that will be more personalized and segmented down the line. But it does depend on what you want to get out of it. For example, if I'm thinking, okay, what events do I need to put on? And I don't have the data to back that up, then it's you can put those events on. It's just that it's not, it might be a waste of your organization's resources if you don't have that data to say why you need X number of events or this kind of event. And it might be quite difficult to convince others if you need sign off for that event to happen.
Brilliant. Also, how do you define an active supporter? Does that include somebody that has come to see just one show? Like, what what is your definition of active?
It this is just a personal preference, so it's not like this is like this is the definition, but I take it as someone who's had some kind of engagement within 2 years of an organization, and that is either attending an event, buying a ticket, giving a donation. That for me is an active supporter.
Right. I think one of the things that just like to speak to briefly, just before we do close, is because we are collecting information on people and using that information to make assumptions to then work with them to hopefully collect a donation and I think we all have a responsibility well we do legally when we are collecting information about people or and so I would just like to remind everybody on this call that when you are doing things like that, you need to make sure that you are familiar with things such as like the Privacy Act here in Australia, the Office for the Australian Information Commissioner, just so that you are familiar with, what is your responsibility to make sure that, firstly, that sometimes that you have consent to collect information about people. Secondly, that you are storing it in a safe environment so that it can't be easily accessed or hacked. And that you're using your smart, your sensitivity when you are collecting that data. I'm not the expert on the what the rules are, but and that's not the purpose of today's session with Michelle, but I think it's our responsibility as people that are wanting to collect this information that we are familiar with that. And, there are some websites out there that are, that do talk in plain speak, that I've found quite useful in the past. And I would, yeah, encourage you to look into those because it is our responsibility, to make sure that what we're doing is right. Okay. Well, thank you, Michelle. That was fantastic. I think, I what I love about your presentations is how you step us through things. And, some of those, not just within the template that we will send through to everybody, but the resources about, this could lead to this. And, or if you have this, then, the step could be X, Y, and Z. So very practical, especially, if you have your training wheels on, if you're very early in, collecting data and looking at that data and going, well, what does that tell us and what can we do with that? Um, Such an excellent presentation. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. Um,
Thanks, Matt. And thank you everyone for joining. I really appreciate it.
so we will be sending a follow-through email in the coming days that will link through to the recording of today's knowledge series and also to the resource that you can download from Michelle. She's quite generously gifting that to everybody. So thank you again. Um, and just another reminder that our next knowledge series, which is on the 15th of April, which is with Nathan Chappell, um, which again just goes back to that AI and its fundraising strategies for the future with AI. So, that data piece and using that data for good using AI. So if you haven't looked into that, I think that's if you've got curiosity, as he mentioned the other day, make sure that you can spare the hour and a half to be there with Nathan. Okay, well, thank you everybody, and we hope to see you all soon. Take care.